Welcome members, time for our question and answer of the week, our second one, which is Friday. Today is the 21st of August. Not too long away from my birthday, but want to get started. I'm doing this a little early. I'm heading out to a dog show, so actually an agility seminar with Janet and Jimmy and Dwayne. So we're going to have a little fun doing some agility, something I'm not really good at, something I just enjoy doing as a total recreational hobby. So no questions about agility, please. Hope you enjoyed the questions. I'm going to do a live tomorrow. Actually, I will be live. Is it tomorrow? I said, yeah, Saturday, 5 o'clock for members. That's what I'm going to do. I will have to post that. I'm going to ask Alan to do that. I'm going to put myself a little post-it note right there. Anyway, let's get started with the questions. Deanna says, "Can you please tell me what command should not be corrected with an e-collar? Thank you for the great videos." Well, that's a really longer question that I can't get into the whole thing. You have to be careful with an e-collar, like if a dog has aggression to another dog or suspicion to another dog, and you start correcting that. If the dog doesn't understand where the correction is coming from, oftentimes they can make the assumption it's coming from the other dog, and it can trigger more aggression. So that's one of the places I wouldn't do it. Now, as a skilled trainer, a skilled behavior trainer can easily use it in that fashion and do a really great job to squash it. Same thing with rattlesnakes. I know people who've done rattlesnake avoidance training, and the trainer never really did a great job in explaining the methodology. So anyway, it started getting, the dog would get more suspicious and be looking for rattlesnakes and be barking at them, and that can be really, really dangerous. There's two ways to use an e-collar also. There's the avoidance technique, which means you start shocking the dog when you give the command and you hope them to get into the position faster. I don't use that method as much. I have, but I don't. The other way is as a correction. So I say sit, the dog doesn't sit. I go no, shock, sit, and then the dog learns to sit. But you need to watch my e-collar videos, Deanna, and see how I use the e-collar. Give you a lot more information. Hope that makes a little bit of sense for you. LAZI says, "I'm a member in a Facebook group that's like your Ask Me Anything. Most dog trainers in the group think YouTube is mostly for learning sit and down, and you won't build a real connection with your dog. I'm sure they're wrong because your site covers everything. What's your opinion?" Well, yeah, I mean, I think most of the YouTube stuff is really just basic rudimentary stuff. I think if you get into some of the more advanced things like we cover in here, you are building a relationship, because that's really the whole focus of this site and this section, the membership section, is to help you build a great relationship with your dog. And I know people are doing it because I hear from you guys every single day. We're getting testimonies from people how it's changed their life. So Jennifer says, "I've been watching the place videos with Dwayne and Maya, and notice when correcting Maya and guiding her back to place, it appears you are rewarding her. Is this because you are always trying to make the place extra rewarding when training? I typically withhold treats when the dog needs to be corrected so as not to encourage screwing up, just get more reward. Am I wrong? By the way, thank you for posting videos that show the behavior before it's perfected." Yeah, I like to do that. And again, so many dogs are so different in so many different ways. I mean, there's basics to dog training, but you must understand, and this is why I address things in so many different videos. Like I'll do several videos on healing or place or sit or whatever, because it's different. There's different ways to approach it. Like I can approach it I can approach it several ways with one dog, but I can't approach it one way with several dogs. That's really important. And this whole cookie cutter methodology is what I'm really against in dog training. You need to understand how to communicate to your dog, the dog that you're working with, to make it a good experience and to make it beneficial for the dog to learn. That's really important. Otherwise, you might as well just read a little flyer and train your dog. So yeah, we try to cover it from many, many different angles. ARVID says, "When being petted, the puppy pushes her shoulder against our body and bends her torso to look at her own butt with a submissive grin and tail between her legs, or sits down with her back turned toward us and lowers head and pulls ears back. Only wags tail when standing on hind legs and licking our face chin. Is this submissiveness normal? Is there anything to have in mind when it comes to training, correcting, or interaction in terms of handling a submissive puppy as a dog? She is dog to dog very dominant." Well, that's not uncommon, right? Because she's insecure. and you need to build her security. So I wouldn't let her be extremely dominant with other dogs. I would try to control her interactions, very short meetings with other dogs, very positive interactions, but very short and very structured. She's not allowed to be dominant. That insecurity is going to trigger a problem with another dog, and you're going to have a big problem to deal with. So I would say, teach the dog something to do. Don't go into all this affection stuff, because that's what's making her more insecure. Give her affection, but when you feed the affection, you start to create a problem with the dog, and that's something I think you're going to want to try to avoid a little bit. Tom says, thanks for all you do. I'm really enjoying being a member, and I've learned a ton. I have a 7-month-old male golden retriever. What are your thoughts on chew tablets that will help prevent urine burns in my yard? If you are not a fan of these products, do you have any suggestions to help with the issue? You know, I think what those tablets do, and I don't know which ones they are, but if you want to send me a link to it, I will look at it. They usually change the pH in the dog's urine, because that's what causes the burns in the grass. It's too acidic, so they try to get it more alkaline. There's things you can do with food that will do the same thing. There are these kind of stones that you can put in their water that kind of changes the pH of their urine. But I would really look at the ingredients. I'm always really hesitant to give a dog something that changes their basic core structure, the way their body works. So sometimes there's too much stuff in there that I don't like, so then I don't. I've never fed them, by the way, so I have no idea. But that's what I'm thinking. ANLY says, my 12-month German Shepherd trains well on the field in focused heel, but on walks and a regular heel, he has a tendency to forge forward, where his shoulder is at my left leg, where I want his head to be. I've done more 180-degree turns than I can count, and also pop the leash or say no when he begins to forge forward, but I feel like I'm constantly nagging him. He knows the back command too, and will come back, but forgets, but forges forward again too. I'll tell you what, ANLY. What I would do is just let the dog forge a little bit when you're on a regular walk, because what you're going to end up doing is you're going to crush the focused heel. You're going to make it aversive. You're going to make that whole walk aversive. Let him have some freedom. Like when Goofy and Maya are on my walk, I actually let him walk in front of me. I'll be really honest with you. Might come as a shock to a lot of you guys, but I'm not that concerned on a walk to get a focus heel or to keep him in a certain position. But I'll tell you, both of my dogs are super tight on their focus heel, but on their walks, they're just, and a lot of people, most people I know who do competitive obedience are like that. They just let them have that freedom. T says, oops, let me make sure we're still recording here. Every time I got to keep checking on things here, because it's a one-man show. There's nobody in this room except for me, and Goofy and Maya just left. So T says, we're trying to train our 7-month-old golden doodle from jumping on people. She stays in a playpen in our living room and jumps on it and stays on her 2 hind legs, oh I see, to watch us do our routine activities. We only pet her when she has 4 feet on the ground. That's good, very good. Is it okay to let her jump on the playpen, or is that going to negatively affect our training to prevent her from jumping on people? No, I don't think it will, because you can't be a dog Nazi. You can't control the dog in every single way, and I've been accused of being a dog Nazi, but you have to give the dog some freedom. It's a 7-month-old dog. It's a golden doodle. Teach her that she's not allowed to put her feet on people, but you might let her keep doing these kind of things, because it depends what you want to do with her. You want to do agility with her or some other dog sports with her. You need to give the dog the ability to have that freedom. Over-structuring the dog in that way is not going to help you. Charlotte says, I'm training my pup 5.5 months, and there are many things I want to teach him, but all take time. Is it bad to try and teach him several things within one period of time? For instance, walk between legs, remote touch, and basic positions on a table, all alongside each other. I wonder if it is too much, but at the same time, I think he might get bored when I focus only on one thing. Looking forward to it. This is one of the most common questions I get, and it's a very good question, and I always answer it the same way. I teach my dog a lot of things, and then I perfect them one at a time, right? So in a training sessions, we might address 3, 4, 5 different things, but I really put a primary focus on one. So let's say you do your heel between legs, remote touch, and basic positions on a table. Focus on one to get it down, and then you'll see the dog will be better at certain things, and when they're better at certain things, then you can focus on other things. But yeah, keep your training interesting. It's a great, great, great question. Jason says, I want to see if you have used either Dogtra or Educator College before. If so, can you give a quick comparison of what you liked and you didn't like? I've tried looking for the type of stimulation pattern between the two, but I had no luck. Lucky for you, Jason, I've used both. And I like the educator a little better. And the reason I like it better is because I like the way the stimulation. Now, I haven't used any dog toys in the last probably 5-7 years. So they might have changed their stims, but the educators have a really nice stim level. I have the Pro Educator, and I actually have it linked on my Amazon store. If you want to buy it from there, I will get a small commission, albeit small, but it'll be a commission. But I like the stimulation level better on the educators, and I also like the stim level on the Garmin. So I'm not picking one there, but between the two, I would go with the educator. Chad says, "Thanks for the consultation earlier in the week. I know you've referenced putting your dogs on your treadmill. Can you give some details on the type of treadmill you use? Do you put them on that a couple of days a week to make sure they are getting their exercise, and a form of making sure they are getting routine activity on days you're possibly more busy with your schedule and such?" Love to hear. Yes. First of all, it's not a treadmill, it's a slat mill. And the difference between is that the slat mill is not powered. So if the dog stops, it stops. That's critical to me. I don't like electric treadmills for that reason, because I'm always concerned that the dog is not going to be able to keep up. The dog could hurt themselves, and the dog could trip, and then you could have an issue with some injury, tracheal injuries and stuff like that, which I have heard of on treadmills. Slat mills, there's no risk of injury. I mean, obviously there's risk of injury in anything, but less of a risk of injury. It's very padded. It's very narrow. It's not a human treadmill. It's very narrow, so the dog can't go sideways. The dog can't get their paws caught under it. But I use it to give my dog a really good, well-balanced exercise, and also to give the dog the ability to really run at full tilt for a long period of time without any turning or cutting or anything like that. So I like it. Not cheap, but worth it. Daniel, I've noticed in one of your videos that you feed Goofy the raw food diet. Do you have, or can you make a video explaining the benefits of it and how to start your dog on it? I've noticed several people online mentioning that they have their dogs on it and would like to hear your opinion. Well, I will make a video on that, and I plan on doing a podcast on it. I have fed my dogs everything from kibble to can to home cooked to raw. I have found that my dogs do better on raw. That's my personal thing. A lot of people tell you, including veterinarians, tell you that it's very, very dangerous. I have not personally not found that to be the case, thank God. But I will do some videos and stuff, some podcasts on raw feeding as well. Eve, I have a 9-month-old Shepherd Saluki mix. Wow, that's an interesting mix. He is super sweet, but under-socialized with people and places. I've had him almost 4 weeks. I try to do a slightly different routine in my little town every day. I've noticed that he has a solid bowel movement in the yard, but as soon as I change routes or take him to new places to socialize, he has terrible diarrhea. I want to keep up on desensitizing him to new places, but his loose stools are embarrassing. What can I do to help his nervous stomach? Well, if it's consistent, then you can add pumpkin or something to the dog's food. That will kind of change, adding more fiber, it will solid up the stool. But you need to get the dog, because this is more than likely not an issue with the food, but an issue with nerves. And when dogs get hot or get very nervous, just like people, they will get looser stools. So I would think continue to socialize and maybe use a little less stressful approaches. So keep it shorter, and get the dog in and out. Walk the dog afterwards to give them a nice routine. Do something positive there. Bring some treats, maybe some pumpkin treats. But I wouldn't. Again, pumpkin helps to solid up a stool if you have a problem with the dog overall. But I think you're dealing more with a nervousness, and that's just something to get the dog. You're going to have to get the dog used to it. Hi, Robert. Love your videos and have been following them to raise my female German Shepherd puppy who is 4 months old now. I've been luring the down position from stand position with food, and she does it perfectly. However, when I ask her to down from a stand, give her the verbal command, she goes to sit and then to down. I want to eliminate the 2-step down and make it a single step down. Please help. So all you need to do is you need to keep luring it. Your dog is too young to know it yet, and you might get a little stick, like maybe like a 3-foot or 4-foot stick, and when you're away from the dog, tap the dog back up under their tummy and say down. So the dog knows they have to go from the stand to a down and not to the sit. Because if they go to the sit, they're pulling their back end in, and you can kind of tap that back and say, no, down. And also, the most important one I would probably do is I would put the dog on a table make sure it doesn't fall off the table. But if you put the dog's toes at the front of a table or even like a little climb or something like that, they're less likely to do that flopping now because their feet end up falling off the table. I wouldn't teach a dog a down from a stand if it wasn't on a table early on, because it's going to make it a lot easier for the dog to learn it. Sue says, I have a 1.5-year-old 60-pound rescue who is reasonably well trained in obedience with a choke chain slip lead. In the last month or so, he's been lunging at other dogs on walks out of excitement. I've been doing the 180-degree turns as you suggested, but I'm a 110-pound female, and my slip lead corrections have not been strong enough to snap him out of it. I understand what you're saying. Should I use an e-collar instead? If so, do you do obedience with an e-collar before I can use it to snap him out of lunging? Great question. Right, so you're in over your head as far as size, and this is what I always say, you know, that it's hard for a woman, I would say women, but it would be the same, obviously, situation if it was a small man to control a 60-pound dog. It's, you know, that's only 50 pounds difference between you and the dog. It's like me controlling a 130 or 140-pound dog. It's nearly impossible. So yes, you're going to need to use an e-collar to get the dog to focus on you, but you're absolutely correct. You need to get the dog to understand the e-collar first. Watch my videos on e-collars and conditioning the dogs, how I use it. Do not, under any condition, bring the dog in front of another dog before you've conditioned him to the e-collar and start shocking, because it's going to make the dog more aggressive. I can promise you that. I promise you, without a doubt, if the dog doesn't understand the e-collar and has reactive issues to another dog, and you just start shocking in front of the other dog, he's going to transfer that onto the other dog, and you're going to have even more aggressive of a dog. So be careful with that. Isabel, I have a pack of 13 dogs. Well, I've been walking for 3 years. One of them, oh, I see. You have a pack of 13 dogs that you've been walking for 3 years. Sorry. One of them is a rescue female Chihuahua. I made a separate afternoon group for her because she has bitten 4 dogs in the pack. Alexa, stop. I must have said something that made her come on. I have a separate afternoon group for her because she has bitten 4 dogs in the pack. Worst bite with females, always. It's always like that. My question is, should I just drop her completely from my dog walking group? I cannot afford for her to bite again. What am I doing wrong? I walk little dogs. I watch your videos. Thank you. Well, okay, so great question. You're not doing anything wrong. And usually, by putting one bad dog in a group of 13 or 12 other good dogs, the pack rule should win out, right? A couple things you can do. One, you can put her on a muzzle, but I wouldn't do that because I think the other dogs are going to pick on her. 2, you can tell your client that they need to get this dog trained, and maybe you need to work with a dog with 1 or 2 dogs with her and make sure she is controlled, that she does not do that behavior, put her with some neutral dogs. But absolutely, 100%, if she's interfering in your pack, you need to drop her. You know, I would. It's not worth upsetting your whole pack. You got 13 dogs. You know what you're doing here, right? I thought you'd live with 13 dogs. When I first started reading the question, I thought it was kind of crazy, but anyway, good for you. Great question. I would. It's not fair to your pack to put them at risk by one stupid, mean, crazy dog. Not cool. Oran and Tal says, we have 2 female dogs, 8-year German Shepherd, 3-year Belgian Malinois. 6 months ago, our first son was born. In the first months, he was most of the time in the crib or on us, but now he started crawling in the house and too interesting in the dogs. What is the right way to socialize and build hierarchy between them? Well, that's a great question. So first of all, I hope your dogs are trained, because you have a German Shepherd and a Belgian Malinois. If they're not trained, you got a huge problem. What I do is my dogs, I would put them individually first on a down, and I would let the baby crawl around. I would be there. If the dogs move, they're not permitted to move. They must accept that. And if they're crate trained, I'd let them be in a crate and let them see that the baby, even though, here's the interesting thing, the baby came after the dogs, but the baby comes first. Right? Usually it's just the other way around. If you brought another dog in, all the other dogs come first and then the new dog. But here, this is going to be confusing to the dogs because this is a baby and it should come last on the totem pole, but you are going to move it first. So I would hold the baby in my hand. Your dogs must see that you love this baby more than anything on the planet. And if they jump, they do anything, there's a very stern correction. They're not allowed to do that. They can sniff, but that's it. They can't sniff and push and lick. And the more that behavior goes, the worse it's going to get. And it's not many times that dogs bite children. It's not out of aggression, because if it was, they would tear them apart. But it's out of playfulness, right? They're nipping just like they nip with each other. If you saw, just watch my Instagram, see some of the videos of Goofy and Maya and Goofy and Dwayne nipping at each other. I mean, Goofy literally lays on his back and starts pulling on Dwayne's neck, bam, 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 grabbing and shaking, grabbing and shaking. And it's very soothing from one dog to another, but it's highly damaging on children. So the dog is not allowed to use their mouth on this child whatsoever. You show this dog that the #1 most important thing in the world is this child. That's the way I did it with Bozman, that when my dogs saw Boz, they see this is the most important thing to me. And when they start to move forward, they go down. And they understand that they're not allowed to interact with especially when it's this, 6 months old, it's a little baby. You've already gotten through the early phases of it, but now you need to get through this. And when your son starts walking, it's going to be a little bit harder, because they're going to be interested in playing. So just teach them. Ignore the baby. Ignore the baby. That's going to be the easiest way. And then as your son grows up, your son will grow up really nice because he has 2 nice dogs. He's not going to be a wimp. Let him be there and be around the dogs a lot, because it'll be really nice for him. Channing says, we had a phone consult about Duke's 2-year-old Malinois. I've had him for 10 weeks from Homeland. I do remember. When e-collar food, he is alert. When e-collar food is alert. High food and throw ball drive. Slow, no response with or without collar if not close by. Very slow response without correction. He knows but walks away. His response is strong with food, e-collar. When playing ball, he owns it. No give, drop, out, then will rebite should he drop toy ball. Do I need to go back to heavier discipline work? He seems to ignore. Yeah, for sure. You need to make sure that the dog listens, right? And you can't be punitive with a 2-year-old Malinois. You can't be punitive. You've got to be strong and fair. The corrections need to be fair. And, the dog is rebiting because he's being playful. He's not listening because he wants to continue the game. He's not biting you, but he's continuing the game. So he's not stopping when you're asking him to stop, because he's too into the game. And I think that's where you're having your issue. And you need to go back to good discipline. I don't know if I'd say heavier discipline. I'd say better communication discipline, that he understands the position. And don't let him get so far away from you if that's where he's kind of screwing up. Chloe, we have an 8-month-old, 8-month YO, I think you mean 8-month-old, Belgian Malinois. Have been struggling with walking her anywhere other than a quiet park. She's very obedient in the park, but as soon as we walk her elsewhere and there are cars present, she pulls constantly and tries to chase moving vehicles. That's what we call prey drive. She pulls badly and has no attention to us at all. We have watched all of your videos, but any previously gained obedience goes out the window when cars are present. Please, do you have any advice? And I do. You need to get her into a situation where these cars are at a distance. You got to figure this part out. I can't figure this part out for you. But you need to get her into a position where the distraction, the prey drive, is at a distance, and you need to correct her. It's as simple as that. You need to correct the dog, because this chasing prey drive stuff is something that's totally inherent in the breed. And I don't know why you got a Malinois if you're not going to be able to handle this, because it is very prevalent in the breed. Bicycles, skateboards, roller skates, cars, motorcycles, any dogs running by. That's prey drive. That's why you got this dog, is because prey drive is inherent in the dog, but you also need to know how to control it, and you need to be able to correct the dog out of it. If not, the dog is going to pull away from you, chase a car, and get hit. So don't let the dog do that. You need to go out and work this dog in the presence of these distractions at a distance before the dog gets too crazy. You can't do it right next to it. So figure that out. Wherever you're going to have to do it, you got to figure that part out, and you got to come down on the dog. You've got to structure the dog. And you got to expose the dog to it over and over, so that it's not a novelty for the dog. Not that it's like suddenly just boom, I haven't seen this in a while. The dog needs to see it all the time. You need to almost flood the dog with this for the dog to understand what he is and isn't allowed to do, and he's not allowed to chase things. Shirley, I have a 4-month-old playful Siberian Husky. She loves people and other dogs. When a person smiles at her or she sees another dog from across the street, she will sit and wait for them to get closer until she can lunge and play with them. She won't listen to me. In order for me to get her to ignore them, I have to pull her away or drag her a bit at first. That's fine. Other times people walk past her and she's fine. How do I get her to ignore others? Or is this normal at her age? Well, she's 4 months old. You can't tell me that you can't control a 4-month-old dog. It's impossible. If you can't control a 4-month-old dog, you're never going to control a 2-year-old dog. So you don't let her do it. You don't let her lunge at other dogs. You don't let her play with other dogs until she's calm. When she's calm and listens to you, then she gets to say hello. But don't let her go, oh, you want to say hi? You want to say hi? You want to say... People do that all the time. It's the stupidest thing. Can my dog say hi? Can my dog say hi to your dog? No, your dog can't say hi to my dog. It's your dog. Imagine if people were like that, always saying hi to everybody. You don't need to do that. You don't need to walk across the park to say hi to somebody else. You don't need to do it. Jeffrey, and I don't mean to come down on you. This is a rant for everybody, for all the members should listen to this, please. Jeffrey says, I've purchased a pup from Working Lines. It's a giant Schnauzer, German Shepherd mix, planned breeding. I don't know who would breed those two together. That's a crazy mix. I wanted a happy dog and I'm looking for a job for a dog to do. She was very mouthy and hyper when first brought her home. Ugh. Now she has calmed down and doing good at home, but I have joined an IPO club near my house and been advised to work on increasing her prey drive. Some question is the pup is from Czech lines and can I have a good IPO and farm dog? Thanks. Well, you can have a good IPO dog and a farm dog, but you've got to be careful how the prey drive is communicated to this dog because you don't want the dog chasing your sheep and trying to kill them. And that could happen. So it's an interesting breeding. I don't know who would mix those two. And I would really love to know that because that's a crazy mix because it's going to be judged as a mixed breed dog. It's not even judged as a German Shepherd or a Schnauzer. It doesn't matter if they're purebred. So, but I don't understand. So you've been advised to work on increasing your prey drive. So you need to increase your prey drive, but they should be doing that at the club. They should be doing that by putting a harness on the dog and back tying the dog and doing agitation work. That's just the way it's going to work. But I wouldn't do it on my own. I'd have one of the helpers at the club doing it for you and with you. Anna says, I've been working on getting my second dog trained for a BH, which is the first title in Schutzen, or IPO, or IGP, which it is now. I think he is progressing very well. He is very, very vocal and barks out of excitement before beginning each new exercise. I'm happy that he's engaged and excited about training, but I'm a little worried he will build a bad habit and bark in a trial. Do you think this is an issue? If so, how to correct it without totally shutting down excitement for work? Well, it can be an issue. I mean, a dog giving a quick bark is not, I don't think it would be a disqualification. I think it would depend on the judge. But if a dog is barking insanely, like you see a lot of agility dogs do, that would be a disqualification in IPO because the dog is not in control of the handler. So I think, you got to weigh that you got to balance that out between, is it too much or is it not enough, right? Is it not enough prey drive? Is it, what is it? That's what you got to consider. Tough one. I would try to gain more control over the dog and then make a big happy party at the end. That's my opinion. Hunter says, we have a 12-week-old Siberian Husky. We noticed right away at 8 weeks old that he has food aggression when we put food in a bowl to feed him. By the way, that's not abnormal for a young puppy. I'm going to get into it in a second. We immediately took your advice and started hand feeding him every meal. Good, which he does a good job at. However, we have noticed that his aggression has now moved to his kennel. Anytime we remove him from the kennel, he immediately growls and tries to bite. We're not sure what we're doing is correct. He does not seem to be growing out of it. I don't understand. Is he forming a barrier in the kennel? I mean, that's a little confusing to me because it says when you remove him from his kennel, he tries to growl and tries to bite. So that's not really normal. I don't know why he would be doing that, but what's the process you're doing? You need to kind of explain this a little bit more to me so that I can kind of understand it. But what I would do when he's in the kennel, I would say, sit, I would open the door, I'd say, okay, come out, I would put a slip lead over him and I would take him out. Or I would leave a slip lead on him and then take him out with a slip lead. But he's 12 weeks old. Please, please, please remember that 12-week-old dogs and 8-week-old dogs, that's what I was going to say, have these habits that are really undefined. In other words, he's just doing it and seeing what reaction it gets out of you. It's totally just an action. It's not even a reaction. It's just something the dog is doing. And if it gets a reaction out of you, he will then start to implement it into a place in his head where it can be used for something in the future. Then he may become aggressive or something. So I would really focus on being very, very neutral with the dog and getting the dog to understand that you're in control, you're not going to get upset, you're not going to, go crazy on the dog. Ethan says, my dog is a 2-year-old old English sheepdog, cattle dog mix. I often do training sessions with her at the park, and she usually listens very well and maintains focus. But sometimes when there's a passerby, she ignores me and fixates on the person or dog passing by. She usually won't leave my side, she just stares. She ignores my treats and toys, and she won't respond to a firm pop on a choke chain or prong collar. How do I train her to focus back on me in these situations? Okay, so it's the same thing I said with the Malinois, with the cars. So you need to get the dog in a situation where that is at a little bit greater of a distance and implement your corrections. Because what it is, if it's too close, the dog is over-flooded or overshadowed with the thought of that and can't snap back out of it. But if it was at a greater distance, he or she could. She could. But you need to increase the distance, increase your corrections, find out where that pocket is, then bring the distraction closer, increase your corrections, and you'll start to see that the dog will get it. But you need to kind of figure out that gap of how far it can be so that you don't have to completely pull the dog's head off, literally, not literally, but, so to get the dog to listen. It should be a pretty easy correction. You can kind of work that in so the dog learns how to listen. Jose, my 3.5-month-old German Shepherd puppy loves barking at other dogs. She's never shown any signs of aggression. She plays well with my 5-year-old son, and she has come in contact with a few dogs that I've tried to socialize her with and does good. But still she barks nonstop at dogs nearby. Is this normal for some dogs? Do I need to teach her to stop, or will she grow out of it? If so, what's the right way to do it? I don't want her to scare off other dogs. Great question. So you don't want her to scare off other dogs, but you also don't want her to trigger another dog into more of a dominance or overly dominant, playfully kind of interaction. You want her to just be a little bit more neutral. The way I would do that is I would not let her meet other dogs while she's barking. She can bark. I would tell her to sit. Another dog would come by and do it at a distance. This is a very, very, very young dog, right? She's probably just playfully barking, but you want to start to teach her to calm down. I think you're probably letting her meet too many dogs, and she is just getting a little too wound up, and that's not going to help her, right? So don't let her meet so many dogs. Let her be more engaged to you, hand her some treats, try to get her to focus on you, and then when the dog's in front of her and then she's neutral, then let her go. Dan, thank you for all your great videos. Our 13-week-old female Rottweiler will sometimes get overexcited and start biting my wife and I. We correct him with putting a toy in his mouth, but sometimes he keeps nipping at us. We want to put him in a timeout so he knows it's wrong and calms down. Should we have a separate area for this so he doesn't associate his crate with something negative? He's always content going into his crate and we don't want to ruin it. So that's a good question. I wouldn't really worry about that. If he's 13 weeks old, you've had him since he was 8 weeks old, so for 5 weeks he's seen it's a good thing. The timeout is kind of a good thing for the dog. The reason the dog is nipping at you more than likely is because the dog is just overly excited and just needs to calm down, just wants to calm down, like a baby crying. You're going to put the baby back in the bassinet. So put the dog in the crate, put something in there for the dog, a Kong or a bone or something, let him chew on it. When he's calmed down, bring him back out. There's a lot of that. Go in the crate, chill out, come out, play, have fun. Oh, too excited, go back in the crate. There's a lot of that early on so the dog learns how to calm down. But it's a good question, but I don't think you're going to ruin anything. Josh says, hey, Robert, just signed up for the videos and I've learned so much already. Your methods are inspiring. We learned crate today. My question is this. How do you get a puppy to stop chewing on the leash? She's a 4-month-old pit mix. She does really well if there are people around, but if it's just me in the yard or whatever, it's game time. Got a long line, but what a disaster that was. The only places we walk are a huge backyard and a school track. Thanks for your time. So the dog is chewing on the leash more than likely to engage you in a game, right? So there's like a tug going, she's chewing on, she's pulling on it, you're pulling back. If you're doing it only in the backyard, then what I would do when she grabs, I would put 2 leashes on her, real simply, and give her a little tap corrections. 4-month-old dog. All these puppy issues are much different if it's an adult dog. But a lot of times if she's chewing on it and you just drop it and walk away from her and go, hey, come here. She's going to come to you, and then you can give her some treats. You can pet her, grab the leash. If she does it again, drop it, and start to see. Then I would put a second leash on, and when she chews on this one, I would drop it and correct her on the other one. And when she chews on that one, correct her on this one, so that she sees that it's not really that acceptable. But again, you can't be too harsh on a young dog like that. Not something I would like to do. Richard says, I have 2 Mal Husky dogs, 18 months old. I've always walked them separate on a long line, but together if we go off leash. We went on a vacation last month and left dogs home with our son. Since then, one dog will not walk in the neighborhood on leash. Son said she started that when we were gone. Nothing bad happened. She's still very obedient, off leash and around the yard, but stops and sits down if she sees we're going past the end of the block. Should I allow this behavior or will it lead to other problems? I would not, right? I mean, if nothing bad happened, just get the dog back into the habit. More than likely she didn't enjoy walking with your son or something. Maybe something did happen. He's not telling you. I don't know. I'm not saying he's not. But just get her on her own, get the dog on her own, and just go for a walk. Just make something good happen at the end of the, at the very end of the walk. Not when people hear me say the end of the walk, they think when you come back home, that's the end of the walk. No, the end of the walk is where you turn around and start coming back. Feed her there, play a game with her there, groom her there, do something that she really loves. And yeah, I would not let her get away with it. And finally, the last question. Ray. Hey, Robert, I've been watching your videos for quite some time and taught many obedience commands to our rescue dog from your lessons. I like hearing that. Thank you. We recently got a second dog and we hit a bit of a snag when I was hoping you can shed some light on it. He's a purebred German Shepherd, about 9 weeks old, and he isn't very food driven. He shows little interest in his kibble but prefers meat. When we try mixing meat into his kibble, he would eat the meat and leave the rest. Is there a way to get him to eat the kibble more? It's going to be a really tricky one for you. But what you can do is you can put the kibble in a food processor, grind it up, and then put that in with the kibble. Then you can't separate it out. That's what I would do. That would be a real simple solution. Or let him go for a couple of days. Never mind. He's a 9-week-old dog. Don't go that long without feeding him. That's not what I would do. But, yeah, you can just grind the kibble in a little Cuisinart, a little food processor, and then give it to him that way. So anyway, it's a long one, 37 minutes, almost 38 minutes. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your membership. Thanks for being here. And thanks for letting me be a part of training your dog in the best way that I think we possibly could do. I'll see you next week. And I'll see you tomorrow at the live chat. I hope you're there.